Hello, everybody. Hi. So, today I'm going to do the Starman spread. Well, not a Starman spread, the spread for anyone who would have chosen the Starman Tarot. And again, they may resonate with whatever degree of resonance, just like anything else. So, take it how, where, when, why it resonates. And especially since these are like more general, they're not necessarily more private. It's especially more of a starting point to get whoever it resonates for, maybe in a direction. And I don't think I mentioned it. I think I did mention that this is like very early. Hey, Dottie, how are you doing today? I did mention that like this is one of the first spreads in the series, so it's definitely meant to build into other things. But I guess it does give a certain context. Hey, Holly, how are you doing today to do that? And maybe it will continue to unfold, maybe not, in ways. Could be dreams or however you receive information. So glad to hear it. When I did the Dolly, I was talking about how modalities was on my mind, right? And the other thing that was on my mind that kind of sort of led to modalities that didn't come out then, so it may be for the Starman people, is truth and relative truths, personal truths, the truths of others, and absolute truths, in a sense of how it's like how what is true for one person may not necessarily be true for you. And so the way you navigate life, reality, your world, synchronicity, um, guidance, and direction. And it's not to say that others can't help us and that there aren't benefits that other truths, that there aren't things that other truths can illuminate for us that may expand our own truth. Um, but it's almost like sometimes if we were to take something if we were to take something given to us from the perspective of a truth of another, we may miss completely what it was that we were supposed to get because it was given to us, right? Based on our context, reasoning, and whatever else. Now, again, there are some times when it is for us to actually discover something outside of us. And if we are in the position of seeking more than what is within us at that point in time, seeking more than we have the ability to comprehend at that point in time, then it may be in the grand orchestration of things for someone outside of us to give us information or further insight on the thing, right? So I'm not saying that like you should never listen to anybody else or whatever, but it is to also understand or to be mindful of the times where your truth may not necessarily align with another in the same way that or it may not align in a way that you are to get or receive the same as someone else, if that makes sense. I keep doing that. There is a space of allowing, but I think there is also a space of disallowing that isn't necessarily always honored. And because of that, we receive partially or misreceive certain things. But if you're following resonance, well, because again, I guess it's that information that like not everything that obstructs the dark is light. Not everything that brings knowing is correct for you. And it's like, there are truths that are true for a while, and then they become untrue or partially true later. And so we allow for those truths to expand. But I think in default, we hold a lot of truths, or we try to hold a lot of truths to be absolute and unchanging, because the truth doesn't change. It's the truth, right? Only a lie or a fabrication would change, but that's not necessarily true, because the entirety of the world is changing constantly. And so maybe those truths get expanded more. Maybe they do get abandoned, some of them, because it was true for the situation that we were in. Maybe we realized that the truth was relative. And so, anyway, truth is a theme for you, whereas modality, I guess, was one for the Dolly group. I need a rune. I need a rune. I'll put one of these in the middle. I think I. No, I think I did it first last time. I don't think I did it last. Ooh, Wicked and Leaf. Wicked and Leaf at the cut, which is interesting. Leaf is such an interesting energy. I don't know what it is in the newer rendition, but as far as becoming, because there was like Leaf and Ofalagu, which was like to become that instead of just wearing it. Leaf and Wickedcraft, it's like to become your practice. And it's almost an energy where it's like it's a lifestyle. It's not a whatever. You know what I mean? So that could be something as simple as realizing the sacredness held within every moment, not just within certain moments, or realizing that we always have a space of influence, not just in the space of ritual, whatever ritual is for you. Like that influence is always there. It's not only when you do whatever practice. Now, it may be strengthened in those practices because you do it more consciously and your intention is there, but there is a certain degree to which the universe and the world around you is always listening. Okay, give it two more, and then I'll take the one at the top. Oh gosh. Oh, it's interesting. Oh, these are both in reverse. So what, it didn't fall on the floor, like it fell between my bed and the table. But it's Hoggle and Bearer in reverse. And I was gonna say it's interesting that this one came out because that one was in that was the rune for the Dolly. And so maybe it is an energy of what worked for them may not necessarily work for you. Just like right off the bat. And then there were like a bunch that flipped over. You have Dag upright, Gadarung upright, and Feo upright. Day purged, gathering dock, wealth livestock, with weathering and fruit bearing in reverse. Wait, did I put reversals in this? I don't remember. Oh, and Watch It Go Fall. Watch It Go Fall came out too, or I flipped over. I think I put some of these in reverse when I shuffled them, or maybe that was a different deck. No, these are all upright. Okay. That must have been whatever other deck I was using. So Watch It Go Fall is soluble. Well, weathering and soluble is it's essentially the same energy. But weathering is done unintentionally and dissolving something is done intentionally, but it's the same, right? It's like if you want to dissolve salt into water, or if you want to dissolve salt, you put it in water. You want to dissolve sugar, you put it in water. You want to dissolve whatever, you put it in something that will dissolve it. Weathering is when it's like something finds itself in that environment, and so the reactions and the processes just happen, not necessarily with the intention to, or not from our perspective. That's why it's weathering instead of dissolving. It's almost in the word or in the connotations of the word. And it's interesting that we have fruit bearing in reverse with wealth livestock upright, because they both hold like similar energies. I feel like it's an energy where perseverance doesn't necessarily serve you, because it feels like when you persevere, when you endure, there's something within that you continue to hold within. And if we're speaking about truths, it's like it's not going to be as beneficial for you to hold on to your truth, regardless of what happens around you, and to never communicate it. It's almost like the exchange of truth or the communication of your truth is what actually brings you whatever it is that you desire. Whereas for someone else, it's like it's for them to remain unchanging, or for them to hold on to what they know is true until the relative truth of the world catches up, or until the environments, the situations, the circumstances external to them catch up to their truth to validate their truth as true. If that makes any sense. It's almost like for them, like their seeds planted in the ground, and when the season comes, they sprout, right? As long as you hold it within, eventually things will change, and someone will come, the wind will shift, it will dust the dust off the diamond. It'll dust the dirt off the diamond, and then it will reveal its value. But it's like here, that withholding isn't necessarily as beneficial because it's a different path. Maybe yours is a truth that changes things, rather than, again, being a truth that rings as things are changing or after things have already changed. I don't know, but that was way too many days. Paul. Okay. There we go. Oof. Well. Oh, you got hell. You got hell. Elksel. Elks hell. What's hell for elks? So the rune that came out for you is elks protection. And the rune at the bottom of the deck that I guess I don't really need to take, but it's here, is hell, death and rebirth. And then behind hell is needle. I feel like with needle and hell, there's a temptation to, hey Shayna, how are you doing? Did you make it to your destination? It feels like there's a temptation to stitch these two, the blue and the red, together to make a solid. Oh, that's why Hoggle came out in reverse. It feels like there's a temptation to stitch these blue and red together to create a purple line. I can't do it because it's backwards. To create a purple line. But if you do that, it'll look like hell, or it'll look like Hoggle, right? With the one diagonal instead of the two diagonals. And that for you was in reverse. It doesn't work for you. And it's almost like this elk's protection keeps you from doing that. And so I don't know if there's something that would bring those two together that you attempt to do, but for some reason it just falls apart. It's almost like with nuclear fission question mark or fusion question mark. If the new particle isn't stable, then it'll fall apart. And the night joins the day. Because Dag and Gadarang, I don't know how to pronounce any of these, but Dag and Gadarang, it's like, well, what joins the day to create that wealth and abundance in Feo? Feo, through the um Feo was probably like the only one I'm gonna remember. But Feo came out with Pachamama, maybe. But Feo, it was carrying an energy of like there's an abundance that already exists within. It's about like externalizing it or finding it in the external world, but it's already self existing or within self existing. And so a lot of this is about, I wouldn't be surprised if this one were like a little air heavy, maybe, because communication seems to be like really big. Oh, well, there's two. Oh, well. So we got the first two cards. I got to pull up the spread so I know where everything is. Oh, yeah. I didn't get to comment on that. But I did see yesterday that you said you were going to a David Bowie exhibit. I hope you enjoy it. I'm hungry now. Okay. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. This is 3 cards. Oops. Pull this one. And then, whoa, nope. I'm not taking like 10 cards for the water. Ooh, excuse me. I'm actually gonna 1, 2. I'm gonna give it a cut. 3 and 4. This one feels like it gets the bottom 2. Okay, and then yeah, you can go up there. The bottom of the deck is the Emperor. It is super, 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 super interesting that the Emperor is at the bottom of the deck because the first card out was the Empress. If you can see the. I feel like I should timestamp this. So let me timestamp. I'll say 1930 because by the time I get done typing, well, oops. 1930. There we go. It's probably like 1945 now, but that's fine. It's 1940. Oops. Wrong window. There we go. Okay, so you're starting with the Empress. And a card that came out face down is the Two of Cups. And with this Two of Cups, I see this Two of Cups almost every time I use this deck, it seems. But there's an energy of something that lies beyond, it's almost like beyond our understanding because it's on the other side of this wall and it peeks through. And again, it was kind of like your truth is one that changes things. So it's one that's meant to be shared. It's not one that you hold on to until things change and then it becomes true. It's almost like you actually create space for something new, for something better. Now, as far as like how people engage with it or not, hold up. These are oh no! This is like 5 cards. Hello? No, it's 4, but still, that's a lot. I had to separate those because they were on top of position 3. 8 was on 3. That's an 11 that's trying to happen. Not yet. And it's interesting. What's also interesting is like she has a lot of like reds and golds in her. And there is some red here, but it feels like it's a primarily like blue world that she's in. So it is bringing the other end, like the other end of the spectrum in some way. And this is what you're starting off with, which is interesting because it feels like the point that you start out. Well, the other one was the fool, but it feels like, and I've only done 2, right? It's in no way exhaustive, and they're general, so take them as they resonate, obviously, right? But again, it's like it feels like whatever is within you is to be externalized, is to be made manifest. And on the other side, it's like whatever is within a certain individual that is not you is for it to eventually find its time. It's almost like it's like that energy might be more Aquarian, where it's like the times catch up to them. And it's almost like there's this temptation for you to sort of like believe the same or to fall into the same category. But it's like the times will never catch up to you because you hold something that is integral to the changing of the times. And like it's almost like that's the fundamental difference. But it's almost like everything else may play out the same, where it's like you feel like you're ahead or outside or whatever. And look, there's a little, I love that, like, there's a little bit of blue at the top of all this red and a little bit of red at the top of all this blue. Now, reconciling those differences may be one thing, and maybe we'll get into it, but that's where we're starting. You're starting with the Empress and the Two of Cups, which is, it's also interesting because, like, the Dolly had no cups, but cups for them, and you have the Prince of Cups over here. So, cups for them almost held an energy of like something that would create a stopping point. It's like if you're translating. If you're translating DNA and you're creating a protein from the sequence of amino acids, it's almost like for them, cups would be a stop codon. So it would stop producing the protein before the protein is even complete. So it's like you got to get to the end first and then you stop. It would be like a premature stop for them. But I mean, you got the Empress and the Two of Cups with the Prince of Cups over here. So water for you is a good thing so far. right? I mean, it can play out any kind of way. And I love that the Prince of Cups is here because this is the space of what is for you to incorporate. And the Prince of Cups is the one who takes that cup and who extends it, who gives it. So again, it's almost like it's reconfirming that message of like it's for you to give something. And it may be, I mean, our truth is sacred. But like with it being an Empress to a Cups energy, it's like it's something that is very important. It is not it is not without great worth or value. It's almost like this is weird. Take it in the context to the scale that it resonates, right? Because it's almost like this Prince of Cups is offering the spark of life that the people in the lower world are like, there's only this one person here, right? But it's like he's offering this spark. This is so backwards. He's offering this spark that's gonna like reignite her soul, to reignite her soul. And it did come out recently. It might have been in this deck at the end of the zodiac when I was getting final messages. But it was the energy. No, it was Ken and the other card. It's not Lafruma. Was it Lafruma? It might have been Ken and Lafruma. It was something about how like there's a divine light that ignites the spark in other things. And then I was like, that could be something as simple as like you living in your truth and authenticity allow someone else to realize that they can do the same. And so even if their truth and authenticity and path or journey or truth is different than yours, them seeing you in the power of the presence of your truth communicated gives them the, at first it's an inkling, then it becomes a knowing, and then it becomes something that they act on that they can do the same type of energy. It does feel though, I don't know if it's in this card, but it feels like balance may be a challenge. Like balancing your truth against others, but is, I mean, as long as you sort of realize how relative even personally absolute truths are, it feels like you'll be fine. Just know that, you know, their truth may be different. But I don't even know if yours is an energy that necessarily like participates to that degree, or if you're just someone that is like seen, if that makes any sense. But after the Prince of Cups is the devil. The devil has the sphinxes in this deck. Usually the sphinxes are around the chariot and the wheel of fortune. This devil card, this devil card just almost completely flipped this reading. Because it's like if you look at his environment, well, his environment, there's the reds and purples and blues. So they're kind of sort of all here. But devil energy makes it feel like this empress is supposed to be in the blue and she's stuck in the red for some reason. Well, then in that case, it's like, well, your truth, the offering of your truth would be the thing that breaks this wall down and it puts you back in the position in the space that you really belong in, that you've come from or whatever. And maybe it's in your journey of getting back to that space that allows others to choose what space they want to be in. Because again, like between the Prince of Cups and this Devil card, we see almost like those contrasting color scheme, whatever things, right? The Devil energy may also be the genius loci of this red space. Uh, not the genius loci, because the genius loci is what, like the spirit of the place or the mind of the place or something like that. It's like devil energy is the collective unconscious question mark perception of the space. It's almost like Freddy Krueger. The only Nightmare on Elm Street movie I've seen is Freddy versus Jason. So but it's almost like devil energy is Freddy Krueger, where it's the fear of Freddy and the belief in Freddy that gives him his power. And when people forget about Freddy, he has like virtually no power. And he can like when he starts to come back, then it's like he can do some stuff in dreams, but it doesn't have the same effect as when like he's at full power or whatever. And then at some point, question mark, he manifests in the real world in Freddy versus Jason, question mark. But it's like that energy. It's not necessarily the genius loci, but it's how the collective feeds into that place. And so it's like a collective, it's a monster of collective creation in a way. But honestly, low key, like it seems like this monster doesn't even want to be here anymore. Hey, Twitty, how you doing? Don't notice me. That's too late for that. See, this devil energy is interesting because as an energy of collective creation, it's like, see, it's taking me back to that whole like, it's not what you think it would be, where the video cut off yesterday. Where it's like there was actually peace in the lower world. All of the conflict and chaos was in the upper world because it's like we're collectively trying to put distance or dissociate from what we held collective belief in, what we created collectively before. And so it's like we're simultaneously trying to create this new thing. At the same time, we can't completely distance ourselves from the old thing. And so there is like a tension there. And like that, it's like that's the reason why this monster of collective making is in a space of wanting to be unmade. Because it's like the collective isn't necessarily pouring into it anymore, but they can't completely detach from it either. And then the Two of Pentacles, I guess, that comes out after that. It's just like it's an energy of balancing. Maybe it's an energy of bridging worlds. And it's interesting because the Two of Pentacles holds a stance that's very similar to, not extremely similar, but it's reminiscent to that Prince of Cups. If you see how they're both standing. And so maybe that's why the expression of your truth is helpful because it's like the more people see you doing what it is that you're doing, and maybe yours is in a more creative route because it is Empress energy. Maybe there's some kind of platform that you hold or some kind of art that you create or some way that you communicate with the world that makes it easier for them to dissociate from the old and to more fully embrace the new. Because then it's like that takes the power out of the devil energy, and then this thing that wants to go to sleep can rest. But this is a space of what's being asked of you to sort of bring in or incorporate. And I guess in that way it's really interesting because it's almost like to be the person that holds that and who was asked to communicate it. It's like it's almost like it would be as difficult for you to communicate your truth as it would be for someone else to accept one that isn't theirs. Almost in like a societal pressure kind of way, but in some very subtle way. I mean, I guess you could say the energies are too dense for some people to connect to the truth of who they are. It's like there's too much noise, there's too much static for some to hear the true inner voice and not the inner voice of paranoia or the inner voice of fear or the inner voice of disappointment or the inner voice of whatever this collective devil energy whispers into the ears and the inner ears and inner minds of people to keep itself around or whatever it did in the past. It's to really sort of like find the voice that breaks through from the other side, from outside of all of that. And to like to really break through in a clear way. Eve, hello. To break through in a way that is free of conditions. Because I think it's almost like, and I know I'm probably super guilty of this, extremely guilty of this, maybe. Because I'm always like trying to contextualize things, but it's like we can receive something. But then we immediately go to the current situation and we're like, well, and it's like we try to tweak the message or tweak what we receive to fit the current situation. So it's like while we do receive, maybe sometimes we receive partially. Now, what I personally try to do in my own life is, or what I've learned to do, what I've been tasked with doing, which is very like with the reading that was hold the path, hold the destination, but release the path. It's like to accept the truth as true, even if my immediate environment doesn't validate it or reflect it as true. And I know I said that this doesn't necessarily work for you, but it's like, because in my own life, like I will hold that truth until the world changes to match it. And then it's like, yeah. And it's nothing that is done, at least those things, it's nothing that is done through direct um interference by me. It's that like it's that weathering, withstanding, like you hold that truth until the world shifts and changes to reflect it. This though, it feels like it's something that's more communicated. And I guess it's like there are those who hold the space, and then there are those who operate within that space. And this is an operating within that space type of energy. But it's like while you're operating within that space, don't be lost to the circumstances of it. This is like such a multi-part effort that it's like we can only do what we can do. We can't do what's not for us to do. And that's something that I've also realized personally. Like I'm really good at like holding space, not as good at like moving things within that space because I get frustrated. Honestly, and a lot of stuff like it's not for me to do. there are a lot of paths, a lot of journeys, a lot of truths, a lot of mindsets that I can't speak to. And it's not for me to speak to them. Maybe it's just for me to hold space. But there are ways that I am more like directly involved. And so it's this balance of the direct and the indirect, I guess. This would be the more direct portion. The dolly would feel a little more indirect in comparison, but not necessarily. It feels like they both kind of sort of hold similar levels of engagement. But with the dolly wasn't about giving direction. Dolly was about empowering some or others to choose their own direction. This feels like, I don't know if it's necessarily for you to give direction, but it's like there are these things that you create and then they auto populate themselves, but they auto populate themselves because of the people who are now empowered to make that clean break between what the world used to be and what the world is and is becoming, that they go into. I don't know. Yeah, I like that. We can do hard things. Oh my gosh. So, what are we building off of? I think it's this card here. Yeah, it is. What are we building off of? Okay. So, you remember how I said it felt like when Devil Energy came out? You remember how I said it felt like Empress Energy? Like she's of blue, but she's in red. Like it actually feels like she's on outside of her space and it's her communicating her truth. It's like she brings her space to this world through the craft that is made. So the position that like our foundation in this energy is the Empress being in her own space in the strength card. Like this feels like the same energy as the Empress, but and when she's in blue, she's like powerful, right? When she's in blue and there's a little bit of red, she's like powerful AF. She's basically she runs it. But here, she's like, I don't know what to do. I love this. I just got super excited. There's an energy here. It's almost like Empress energy would have an understanding or a knowing or an inkling. I don't know if she would fully comprehend and understand, but there would be something deep within her that feels this powerful, but would feel maybe powerless at her ability to, at her ability to engage with the world to the degree that she knows she can or that she believes she can. It's almost that energy. Strength to do hard things, exactly. Um, it's almost that energy of like if you're a kid and there's something magical or wondrous or supernatural that you see done in like a movie or a TV show or in a book or in the media, in some form of medium, in some medium. And there's like, you have this like belief or knowing that like you should be able to do the same. So you try it, but it never works in real life. And so over time, it's almost like what happens to that belief or that knowing that you could do those magical things that you see done. Like this is being in that space where like you do it all. This is being in that space where it's like, okay, but like it don't happen in the real world. So like what gives? What's up? It's almost then. This who is that? I think it would depend on where you hold dual citizenship. Because if you hold dual citizenship in two places that are more or less the same, then it's like it's more or less the same. But it's like if you hold dual citizenship in two places with more of an extreme, then you'd have more practice in like balancing extremes. But yes, I'm looking at this up here and then this right here. And it's almost like I think this is where that elk's protection really comes in. But beyond that, and I don't know how to describe it, it feels like it feels like circumstances or a situation for you to be all of who you are. Like, it's very like every 19 years on this day at this time when the planets align, something magical and wondrous happens where we become more. Like it's like that. It's an aligning of circumstances that that proves your truth as true or that shows your truth as true. And it doesn't necessarily have to be as specifically aligned as that. It just reads as like those moments, those times where even if it isn't like even a decent fraction of your experience, it is like, well, I've had this experience, I've done this. So something is at least partially true type of energy. So for water, you get oof. In the position of water, you have the Eight of Swords, which is interesting because well, it's only interesting because for Dolly, the air led with the Eight of Swords. Um, I think this Eight of Swords, this is probably gonna sound a little weird, but it's almost like your connection is limited. It's almost like there's a reason why like only this much of the wall is torn down because I don't know it's holding that energy of like this it's holding an energy of like this layer of reality cannot handle all of this. Like all of this would cause it to come apart at its foundations. And at least right now, it's not about dismantling or destroying the entirety of it. It's about changing it. It's about opening the window, the door, the portal for it to grow, for it to get better. And so it's like, we barely turn on the faucet We don't turn it on full blast and like wash everything out like we've already done the flood thing. I'm pretty sure there's been a fire thing, maybe an earthquake thing, maybe a volcano thing. Who knows? There was an asteroid thing that took out the dinosaurs, supposedly. And it's like we're not necessarily trying to reset the board right now. And so it is limited. But, and like this is coming out in the space of creation. It's coming out in the space of connection. But it's like in feeling those limitations, it makes it easier for you to forget or to question a truth of yours. And like there are crows all over this thing. There's lightning striking these things, and it's almost like this reminds me of there's a card. It might be the Eight of Wands in the Mystical Dream Tarot question mark, where it's like there's a sarcophagus and then there's the person with the womb, and then it's like all these lines connected to the sarcophagus like she's trying to bring it back to life. But it's like these things up here ground the lightning, these swords down here ground the lightning, and it's almost like there are these things positioned all around you that grounds most of that energy so it doesn't even make it to you. But the crows are the ones who like communicate these things. And in some way, it's almost like this is the truth of the potential. This is the truth of who you are, like the big one. The smaller one, like down here, is what you perceive as your like your greatest potential, and then like this tiny little light body right here is like you. So it's still smaller than this sarcophagus, and it's definitely smaller than this one. Oh, there's a few of these around. Oof, why is this? If you resonate with it, it is low key like a monad energy, like being one of the monad. And so there's only like so much that one is allowed to embody. But it is like it's a limitation on embodiment. It feels like it doesn't necessarily limit the connection in an etheric way, which is the I don't have the words. It's like it doesn't limit the connection, but the disparity causes us to doubt or question or diminish it in some way. And it's almost like, well, if we would understand that sometimes limitations exist for, and this is funny because I just did my homework last night, but it's like sometimes limitations exist for good reason. Not all limitations are bad. Not all restriction is evil or oppressive. Some of it actually does benefit us in some way. Right? Like think of drunk driving or whatever. When they have like legal limits, it's like if you're over this limit, you shouldn't drink. Now, you shouldn't drive. You probably shouldn't be driving if you've had like anything, but it's like, oh, I only have a little bit. I'm not that impaired, so I'm still fine to drive. But it's like if you go over the limit, now it's like, well, in a free whatever, there should be no limits. You should be able to drink as much as you want and drive because that is your right, that is your freedom. But when it when it endangers others and yourself, then it's like maybe that restriction, maybe that limitation actually serves like a good purpose. Because otherwise, we'd have way more accidents than we already do. Now, in the space of air for you, you actually get water. So you got water where there was air, you got air where there was water. Here it's the Four of Cups. These are some rough energy. These are some not traditionally great energies. Um, like Eight of Swords, Four of Cups. But it's almost like it's not unexpected for someone to be all of who they are and then to appear as they do in the world, or to be forced under the limitations of the world in the way that they are. I feel like this Four of Cups is saying, like, you still have your heart. Because, like, there's this shadow thing back there missing a heart, but then there's like a heart popping out of this blue hand. And so it is a you still have your heart type of energy. And you've maintained all of your connections with the roots. It's just like where you are down here, it's hard to maybe feel that or know that or remember that sometimes. I feel like there's also an energy here of combating this energy, this devil energy. And it's almost like it's trying to know or remember or validate who you are in a world that doesn't do that. But it's not for the world to do that either, because there's something that you bring the world, something that maybe the world doesn't even know that it doesn't have yet. It's like one of the spaces of like things that we don't even know that we don't know. Like there are things that we know, there are things that we know that we don't know, and then there are things that we don't even know that we don't even know. There are things that we wouldn't even have the thought to think about, type of energy. Ooh, sorry, Twitty. I know when I was in middle school, um, I had a friend who they drove over to the next town one night to get like dinner or something like that, or to just spend a night in the town. And on their way back, they were hit by a drunk driver and they lost their mom. And it's like being that young, or even if you're older, it's just like, and it seems that whenever something happens, it's almost like it's almost never the actual person who was doing the drinking and driving. It's like something happens to the other car. And so maybe that brings in an energy where it's like, even if you are doing everything that you're supposed to do, when we're down here, we're affected by the choices and decisions of other people. And maybe that could insert a certain powerlessness where it's like, even if I do everything within my power to do, there's still so much that I have no control over. And maybe that's a little bit of Eight of Swords, Four of Cups, where, especially with it being an Empress energy, it's almost like it carries a feeling of like, I know I should be able to do more than this. Or I know I shouldn't be in this situation. I know I shouldn't be in this circumstance. But like, why is this happening? Um, but yeah, I'm sorry, Twitty. And it almost low key feels like it plays into that devil energy somehow. Yeah, these are rough. So in the space of Earth, fire comes out. I wonder if fire is gonna come out, or if Earth is gonna come out for fire. It's the Seven of Wands. It feels like this Seven of Wands energy is in direct conflict with this Four of Cups energy. Because at first, like, I was looking at all of these little things up here, and like these little shadow people or whatever down here. And I was like, what's that about? But on this card, it's like there are these blue things up here. So this is mm, it's this energy. It's going back to this. And this is in the space of what is for you to incorporate. And again, it's like it's that Prince of Cups trying to stave off or fight off devil energy. It's that energy where something about the Prince of Cups can reignite the souls of those down here. Something about the expression of the truth of the Prince of Cups can do that. And it feels like this whole battle, this whole Two of Pentacles balance where these worlds are colliding, it's between the air and the earth. And again, it's interesting that earth energy is coming out more like empowered, and air energy is coming out with more like of a disempowered energy. And it almost seems to reflect back again that like all of the conflict right now is in the upper world. Like it's not in the lower world. The lower world is a lot more simple. The lower world is almost like, if you have a kid who's throwing a tantrum and you give them a piece of candy, they calm down. It's simple. The upper world is the one that involves like the clashing of theologies and beliefs and truths and all of that stuff. Those upper chakras, like all of that's in the upper world. The lower world just sort of like is. The lower chakras is just sort of like a beingness, but it's a beingness that the upper chakras wouldn't consider as being. You know what I mean? It feels like the upper chakras would be like, that's not being, that's just existing. But again, it feels like, and maybe it's because it's closer to the root that it's already resolved. Oh, we got a little bit of crow energy here, I think, right here, maybe, potentially. No problem. I mean, I feel like saying no problem is like, oh, you're welcome for the trigger. Like, but I'm just curious if this is going to be Earth. It's not. It's actually more air. So there's no Earth here. Oh, wait, there's two cards. Is this Earth? It is Earth. So there's air where there should be water. There's water where there should be air. There's fire where there should be earth. And there's earth in the fire. So again, it is that energy where it's almost like from the other side. Water and air are both fluid elements, but water is like yin feminine, air is like yang masculine. So they are kind of sort of like diametrically opposed. And then fire is yang feminine, and water or and earth is yin masculine, according to whatever um that was wherever, right? In general, this almost feels like the battles that we face, the challenges that we overcome in our own personal lives, it plays out on scales much greater. It's almost like while we fight to free ourselves from that devil energy, that just sort of like that's the way the world works energy, the way the world has become, then it feels like it act like there's some kind of ramifications that it has somewhere else. I don't know what or where it is, but mm, yeah, I know that's how it usually works, Holly, which is why this energy is being resolved from the bottom up. Because if you go top down, it's going to take too much time. And that reminds me, it was a while ago now. It was when I was using the Earth Gaia Tarot, Dreams of Gaia, when I was using the Dreams of Gaia Tarot. And it was this energy that it was like it's flowing in the opposite direction. When the middle world came out in reverse, it's like it's moving up instead of it moving down because it's taken too long to work from the crown to the root. And it's also interesting because the Dolly was coming out with an energy of like there's something that you're putting into the earth because you're closer to it that then like other people can like upload from that because it's taken too long to clear the blockage from top to bottom. That's where it's like that's where all that conflict is. That's why it's that way. That's why the fight is in the upper world right now and not in the lower world. But does that work for people though? Because then it's almost like, well, then the lower world can shift before the upper world shifts. But I'm like, well, as people, if the lower world shifts before the upper world shifts, then like I feel like there's no change. But again, I don't know. I don't know anything. Especially not when it comes to these types of matters, I know next to nothing. Yeah. What? I feel like you see more in the Saturn tapestry than I do. Well, it's like after you say you see it, then I'm like, oh my gosh, like when the stars used to twinkle. I feel like the whole camera's like blurry now. Um, so in Earth, fire, you're coming out with the Two of Swords and the King of Pentacles. It's also interesting because Dolly got the King of Pentacles in the position of um, what they're incorporating, and it's coming out for you in the space of fire. See, okay, this Two of Swords is like super interesting because it's turning this Four of Swords. It's almost like it's turning this Four of Swords on its head, but the Seven of Wands is winning out, right? Because like it's like between the two of these, there's more dark up here than there is like light up here. But when we make it over to the Two of Swords, it's like, well, they called in reinforcements. So now there's a whole bunch up here and not as much up here. But the Two of Swords also, it's like you can see how it flips the color scheme of the Four of Cups on its head. What's also interesting is it feels like we have a little bit of an opening of one of these energies, but it's like the sarcophagus partially wraps around it. That's some like semi Cancerian energy because it's like there's a person inside, but they also wear part of the shell. And so it's almost like if you've ever seen what was that one movie with the giant robots or whatever? It's like Gundam or whatever. It's like when you get in the robot and you pilot it, like the Power Rangers Megazords or whatever. It's like this person is inside piloting whatever was thought to just hold a body. I don't know. This is bringing out some really, really interesting energy. And it's the Two of Swords. So you got Two of Pentacles energy, Two of Swords energy, and holding that balance. I also love that, like, there's this little light down here. We see like this little oyster given its pearl, but the pearl is black pearls. I'm like, what? I don't know. There's some rain down here, but maybe the sarcophagus shell protects it from the rain. I don't know. There's some claw marks in the sky. And then you end with the King of Pentacles energy. And I'm not even going to attempt to read this King of Pentacles energy. Yeah, very mecha. What was that movie though? They had a movie that was you can see the crow better when it's blurry. Yeah, hopefully that it was like not literally, thankfully for that. Oh, I'm hungry. What was that movie though? It wasn't like Tokyo. And I feel like they were gonna make a second one. I didn't watch the movie, obviously. Well, not obviously, because I could have watched it and forgot. Big Rift something. I don't know. Big rigs. I don't know. Honestly, though, well, because there's an anchor right here. The King of Pentacles, when this Two of Swords It's like when this Two of Swords energy is successfully incorporated in a way to get us to like be in the world, but to also be all of the more that we are, then it's almost like it Pacific Rim. That's what it was. Thank you. Thank you. It was Pacific Rim. I was like, I never watched it. Yeah, Pacific Rim. I'm assuming that was like mechas, like they were getting in the things and then they were going to fight whatever. I don't know. I didn't watch it, but it's like Pacific Rim type energy. And like, I guess there is like this War of the Worlds type mess going on. But it's like, it feels like is this energy embodied in this space. It's like it's a King of Pentacles here. And again, like if the Eight of Swords was all about limitations, this is us learning to operate within that set of limitations. And it's almost like when we know the restrictions imposed upon us, when we know where the bounds are that we can't sort of like cross, then we can really start to, it's not necessarily strategize, but it's like we can put things in like practical motion because we're no longer seeking what is beyond the capabilities of of the world to sort of like give us or to manifest within us. Like the King of Pentacles is very resourceful. And it feels like, I don't know, like we embody to the best of our ability all that we are. And we show up in the world in that way and we move in that way, regardless of external circumstances and situations. And it feels like this is a bit of that persevering energy where it's like maybe we learn to come into that, but the expression of our truth or your truth is also important, Starman, Star people. I'm like, what is this? Oh, my ears. Wait, was it a terrible movie? I don't know. Maybe maybe it was bad. So where are we ending all of this? Well, first and foremost, I mean, the first card is the Ace of Swords. Speaking of truths and stuff like that, right? It's the Ace of Swords. And this card is like, because this is like, it's above, it's like far above and beyond even this energy. And then you move to the Ten of Wands. So the Ace of Swords, the Ten of Wands, the Princess of Swords, which has that rift in it. The Princess of Swords and the Prince of Swords came out the other day, and I don't necessarily remember. It was like, what is your truth? I think that was her question. I think her question was, what is your truth? And then after that is death. But death is interesting. Death is interesting because of the Two of Swords. So it's like death is the one that exists without the armor of the sarcophagus. Almost like it exists without limitations, without those limitations, but maybe in this space. And maybe that's the thing. It's almost like it's almost It's almost like an energy where it's like you have to know the rules of the game before you start to change it. You got to know the rules of the game before you change the game. And I think where it seems that where a lot of us get stuck sometimes is like we think that we're doing something brand new, revolutionary, something outside of the box, but all the while we're still playing by the rules of the game. We're still playing the same game in the same way. Or maybe we're playing the game in a different way, but it's like it's the same game. There's nothing truly revolutionary or groundbreaking. There's nothing truly different that we do. It's like we're just perpetuating maybe a different cycle. Like we jump on a different cycle and we move that cycle forward, but it's a cycle within the same grand scheme of cycles. And it's not a cycle that actually leads us to a new like realm of potential. It gives us more or less the same. That's how things sort of repeat over and over and over and over again, ad infinitum. Oh, I didn't even notice that. See, because in the Princess of Swords here, like you see the third eye on the skull activates, and then after that, again, we come into like full death energy. Oops. And I don't know. It's like honestly, the that it reminds me of that mecha energy again. Like that light is what animates this death energy. That light is what like fully that really brings cycles to an end and that ushers in new cycles. It's like it brings in total death for total rebirth, but it's not total death in like a weird way. It's like again, because this devil energy was the inability of the collective at large to more fully separate themselves from everything that was and to more freely step into all that will be, all that already is in some ways. And just like this Prince of Cups offering his spark to reignite the souls of the others below, it's like when we Prince of Cups ourselves, that's what activates this energy within us. Unbound, unrestrained, unlike that Two of Swords energy. But this is the space of potential. Like I said, this is one of the first spreads. So this is like way out energy. And then the ones in between are hopefully help us reach that. I'm not doing all the spreads in between because you can live your own life and you have your own guidance and all of that kind of stuff. And this is general. It wouldn't make sense for me to generally like do something. And like I said, like there are more than just like Starman people and Dolly people. It's to give you a certain like basis to start or build whatever and to allow your own guidance to come in and to do whatever is for you to do, right? I don't even know if I would have the capacity to like run people through this. And I guess I wouldn't necessarily have to. I could just like type it up and give it and just release it. But I don't know. And I feel like this gives this Elks rune new meaning because it's almost like we operate all three branches of this where we're totally empowered, where we're partially empowered, and where we don't have much choice or excuse me or say at all. Like each branch is a different has a different hollowness to it. And like we can't be everything in every situation. It's not for us to be. It's to allow others the opportunity to be for them, to be for themselves, and then it's to allow others to be for the people that it's for them to be for. You know what I mean? So that's you, Starman. Excuse me. No, Mecha like Mecha. like mechanical. Um, what the mecha meta? What the like mechanical? Like you get in like Pacific Rim, like Gundam. You get inside a giant robot and you pilot the robot type of energy. And the Emperor was at the bottom of the deck, and behind the Emperor is Temperance. And the Emperor is the one, it feels like self assured in his presence in the world. Like the Empress is what we give and how we give, the Emperor is how we hold presence. And then the Temperance that unites them, it's like the way and the manner in which we give does hold presence. And the presence that we hold does give. And it's for both of them in highest alignment to be reflections of that truth that we are. Oops, or something like that. I'm just glad that like these weren't too far outside of my realm of understanding. Where I'm like, this is the energy that's coming, but I don't know what it is. I also think that like doing it the first time, like I said, my brain operates in metaphors. My Mercury is natally in Pisces, natally retrograde, natally in my 12th house. So, so if you need me to liken something to something else, I can do that to hopefully get some understanding flowing. But no problem. Yes, mecha equals mechanical. Not necessarily AI, but mechanical, yes. I guess it wouldn't be AI at all because it's piloted by human beings. It's piloted by the self. AI would be like if it were piloting itself, and it doesn't, it's not self piloted. But yeah, I haven't seen Avatar either, but I think it's like Avatar where they plug in and they like navigate, operate the little thingies. Ooh, okay. All right. So I guess I get a final card before I put these away. What am I gonna eat today? I did get a salad. So it's like Avatar, but it's not AI. Because for at least for me, AI is something that pilots itself. It's like it's designed to do things by itself. But this is something that we interact with and we control how it moves and how it operates. But we get into it because it increases our capabilities in some way, right? Like when you're inside piloting a giant robot, you can do giant robot things, and maybe the giant robot can shoot laser beams out of its hands or something. Oh, you haven't watched Avatar yet? Yeah, I haven't watched it either. But from my understanding of the movie, it's like they basically pilot the well, there's the world of the actual people, and then there are other people who pilot bodies that look like theirs to infiltrate them or something. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, it's like that. There you go. No problem. Oh, oof. So the three cards that came out, they all came out in reverse, but I took them upright because bottom of the deck is the Four of Cups again. The cards that came out, it's the Eight of Wands. Eight of Wands, it's almost holding a judgment energy. I feel like this Eight of Wands is actually about it's connecting us, just like the Empress is to realize that she is the same strength woman, just on the different side of the world, or on a different whatever, and that there are restrictions and limitations that she feels with the Eight of Swords, and then the powerlessness that comes with the Four of Cups. But then the fight, because I can't think of another word, the fight that comes in with the Seven of Wands, and then the balance that she gains at the Two of Swords that leads to the King of Pentacles energy. Like, even within those restrictions and limitations, there are still things that she can do. And so she re-empowers herself to do those things, to do what is for her to do. It's like, at the end of all that, especially in that Two of Swords into the King of Pentacles, from the Two of Swords into the King of Pentacles, into the Princess of Swords death card, it's like there's a slight, it's not judgment, but it's an energy where it's like we like reconnecting to this greater truth that we hold. I don't know if it necessarily grows into the trunk or if it hovers above it. I don't know if like the limitation of that disconnect persists. So that's as close as they can go, but they are like perfectly aligned over it. And again, it's that energy that was the kin and the whatever else, the spark that ignites something within us. Because you can see the same glow that is in the trunk is in the staff. It's on both ends of the staff too. It's a candle that burns on both ends. Inversion. It's the Queen of Spades in the Diceology deck. Um, I don't remember the other tagline, but and then again behind this Eight of Wands is the Ace of Swords. And you can see the same, like very similar, but this is like completely unrestricted in the Ace of Swords. And in the Eight of Wands, it is like it's got no way, it's the opposite. It's completely unrestricted in the Eight of Wands, but in the Ace of Swords, it's got connections and stuff like that. It's got stuff in it. I wonder why it's almost, I wonder, I don't know what the differences are between these and the Eight of Wands being lit at the top and the Ace of Swords being dark at the top. Maybe this is a balance between the light and the dark within self, where it's like it's connected in both sides. I don't know. And then the last card is the Three of Swords. And there is an eagle question mark in this Three of Swords that's like not all the way there, or we can't see all of it. But speaking of like between light and dark, that's where this energy kind of is. This card, honestly, I see that like that little mystery question mark thing down there, mystery block. I see this little light thing popping out of the darkness. I'm like, okay, I don't know. I feel like there's an energy in this Three of Swords that like it just doesn't know where to begin or where to start or what to do. Because it's like he's sitting there in front of the bucket of paint, but not yet painting himself. But the figure above him has a paint, like the heart is already painted on. And so maybe this is an energy that as we reconnect and explore the depths of that connection and embody that connection in an observable way, not in a way that we have to communicate, but in a way that can be felt by others. Like maybe that energy will ripple out. It ripples out. Okay, there we go. It ripples out and then it hits this one where then he can like pick up the paintbrush and paint whatever is for him to paint. I don't know. It's that like that kind of energy. And again, at the bottom of the deck is the Four of Cups, right? It's interesting because in the Four of Cups, it is like that black and sort of pinkish color that's in that bucket of paint. And so maybe first this character has to like strip themselves of that paint. And after they're stripped of it, they have to recreate themselves in a way. And so that's how we like, we rebrand ourselves or we recreate ourselves, but we may not necessarily recreate ourselves in a way that truly reflects who we are. And so maybe we go through another period where it's like we ride that version of us for as long as we can until we have to go through another cycle of transformation and rebirth. And hopefully, all the while, we get closer and closer and closer to the truth of who we are. But again, it's like, when one person is embodying their truth, then it empowers another to do the same. Or it at least makes them aware that that's a choice that they can make. And so maybe at some point, that Three of Swords individual will paint themselves in the true colors of who they are. And then it will grow and grow and grow more into that. And their rod, I guess, their stave, their staff, their wand will get closer and closer to that root that they are, or whatever. These are interesting. Don't know if I'm going to do this again. Probably not. Well, maybe. I don't know. We'll see. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. So I have officially fulfilled my obligation to complete these. I was almost like, you know what? I don't know if the Starman's going to happen. But it didn't feel right. So I had to come back and finish the Starman. So there you go. You get it. Yeah. This is interesting. Oh my gosh, I didn't even realize. So you remember at the bottom of the deck how hell is the rune that came. Hell was the rune at the bottom of the deck. And I was talking about behind hell is needle. And I was like, there's this temptation to stitch the blue and the red together to make a purple, but for some reason it doesn't work. Like that, like it's protected. These two streams are actually protected from becoming one. And then it was like you're this empress, you're this red empress living in a blue world, but you're actually like this blue strength that's like a red empress. It's like the red and the blue and the purple are all here in hell. And we're talking about like, that what ultimately led up to, or what will ultimately lead up to the death card awakened by the Princess of Swords that was held at the Two of Swords until we could come into that King of Pentacles energy. Yeah. And it's us again, like with that Two of Swords, it was an energy of like operating within those limitations or whatever. And like that's how the whole thing actually shifts and changes. It doesn't shift and change because like we shift out of it, and then at least for Starman, it's not about obliterating what is. That's why there are restrictions and limitations in the first place. That's why Blue Strength Lady can't just step into the world. But it's our sort of navigation of both that leads to things changing or whatever. Anyway, there we go. I just got the last rune. Oof, well. This is hilarious because all of these runes are upright. And this rune came out in reverse. It's Ganunga Gap in reverse again. It's like it's raising, it's lifting up. It's creating separation between the light void and the dark void because I don't know. Who knows? Elk's at the bottom with Vane. At the bottom of the deck is Elk's Vein, which is 1551. A protection of fluidity? Maybe it's the protection of choice. And I can only see the protection of choice in a way where, like, we protect the choice. Like, we can't violate the choice of others, just like the choice of others can't be violated. And so it feels like there is a limited amount of what we can truly do for someone else, because at the end of the day, the choice is theirs. At the end of the day, the choice is the collectives. We all make our individual choices, and it's a collection of individual choices that make up a collective reality, question mark. And so it's almost like, because that's what the Dolly was about, it's like empowering other people to make their own choices. It's almost like it's echoing that back here too. Like, you're still empowering other people to make their choices, even if your energy is one that in some way creates potentialities for people to choose, but they still choose it. You don't choose it for them. I don't know. That's a you and your path, your journey, your guides, your soul, your maker, your creator, and the creation in which you inhabit conversation. So, with that being said, I hope you all have a good whatever whenever you. I hope you have a good whatever whenever you see this. I hope you're acting in alignment to make all that you wish to experience your reality. Shayna, I hope you enjoy the exhibit, the David Bowie exhibit. And for the rest of you, I hope you also enjoy whatever you got today. I hope you get some good food today, because I'm on some good food today. And who doesn't like good food? North Node, South Node integration, maybe. If that's how it resonates for you, yes. I'm just like, what? Node integration. But I can see that between in the Hell Rune, the blue one and the red one, and like, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, yeah. No problem. Bye bye. Jamata Kondo. See you next time. Mata. Jamata Kondo. I don't know. Japanese.